Minute. 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 Pag nawalan ng trabaho si Doc, kunin nyo, no? O, di ba?
Oo, meron silang contractual sa janitorial. Contractual yun.
Diyos ko.
Yung staff nagbigay. Wala naman sige, I think you can go ahead. Sabi ng staff. Sabi ko, oh, wait. Then just give me your director's clearance and then I'll be.
There will be a press conference at 1 o'clock this afternoon called for by the Catholic Bishops' Conference of the Philippines.
On the latest things that
Yes,
yeah.
especially, maybe they have a selfie with God.
Forgot to say, we're careful. Lalo
You know,
na. Natin.
I placed something in my Facebook. Did I hear the choir singing, Kunin mo, O Diyos, at tanggapin mo? I just got this book today. It's a novel by Bill Clinton.
Oh,
Yeah.
it's like, yeah. You think, what's
Yeah.
the,
Masaya to. Masaya to. Anyway, okay. Nawala yung, for the first time, nawala yung KMU. Si Sammy. Oo. Baka mamartes siya. Hindi lunes.
sana si Yusek na lang, di ba? Yusek is KMU.
Joel, oo.
Oo.
Ay, nako. Ha? Dapat, nandito na siya. Okay? Halika na. Okay. Good morning po. Paki-request lang po yung mga kasama natin to put your phones on silent mode. Okay? Pagkatapos po, remind ko lang, isa lang yung forum natin, no? Dito lang yung table ng discussion, okay? So, let's begin. Magandang umaga po mga kaibigan. Welcome to another edition of our Tapatan sa Aristocrat. Mahalaga yung pag-uusapan ngayon sapagkat may kinalaman ito sa mga panganib na hinaharap ng ating mga manggagawa sa iba't ibang larangan. Nabalita na natin ang mga naganap sa Kentex, sa PEZA, at sa ilang pang mga lugar tulad na naganap sa Resorts World about more than a year ago. Ano na nga pala nangyari doon, no? At meron ding naganap noong nakalipas na Disyembre sa Davao. Bakit nagkakaganon? We invited the resource persons to be with us today. We're happy to have with us Nick Leventhal, the Chief Technical Advisor for Safe Youth at Work Project, Labor Administration, Labor Inspection, and Occupational Safety and Health Branch of ILO based in Geneva. We also have with us Dr. Tesco Cueco, mula po naman sa Bureau of Working Conditions. She used to be with the Occupational Safety and Health Center. At doon kami naging magkaibigan some years ago. Some years ago. And then si Attorney Sunny Matula, ang Pangulo po naman ng Federation of Free Workers. At kasama rin natin ang isang nagangalang Beatriz Bronjal mula sa Advancement of Youth for Occupational Safety and Health or AYOSH. Huwag na pag-usapan yan, no? At inanyayahan po namin ang magaling na punong lungsod ng Valenzuela, si Mayor Rexor Gatchalian. Pero wala po kaming natanggap except we acknowledge receipt of your letter. As to whether he's coming or not, we do not know. We also invited the Bureau of Fire Protection to update us on what has happened. But we're hoping na traffic lang sila. Okay, let's start. If we're to look from an international perspective, Nick, how is it today as far as safety and health concerns are concerned? Please.
Thank you very much, and thank you for the invitation. Let me just say that I started working in occupational safety and health back in the 1970s, and I'm still working in occupational safety and health. So maybe that will give the first indication of the answer. There is, and there always has been, a lot of work to do in
You
occupational
must have
safety
started
and
when
health.
you were 2 years old.
Yes, yes. I acquired knowledge and awareness at a young age, but it's become more than work. It's become a life mission, and it's one that I'm happy to share with colleagues and national partners here in the Philippines.
Okay. Would you care to share with us some data about occupational safety and health, worldwide perspective? And please have the mic closer.
Yes, thank you very much. The data is not encouraging. Earlier, I would say September of 2017, a new set of occupational safety and health global estimates were released by the ILO, and those continued to show increases in fatalities and in workplace injuries and in workplace illnesses. Now, part of this is a result of better data collection. Even in the most advanced economies and the most advanced national law systems, getting accurate data about the OSH national situation is difficult. But it's fair to say that there are not trends. We are not seeing trends in terms of reductions, major reductions in injuries, illnesses, or fatalities globally.
And to which factors would you attribute the increase aside from more efficient data collection? Is it possibly because of the wanton recklessness of governments to enforce what needs to be enforced?
No, I wouldn't say that. Ultimately, the obligation for ensuring that workplaces is safe falls on the employer. And the reasons why employers are not meeting these obligations to the extent we would all hope that they would rests on a lot of different factors, some of which we're working on here in the Philippines in the Safe Youth at Work project. Sometimes it's a lack of data, a lack of understanding as to where the hazards are and which are the most severe hazards needing to be addressed. In other cases, it's a failure of policy or regulations, and yet in other cases, there's a failure of capacity. There's a shortage of the know-how and the resources to address situations that have been known. I'll give you one example. The Safe Youth at Work project focuses on young workers as vulnerable workers in a workforce who suffer the highest rates of injury in the workplace. And this is across all economies and all sectors. I was reviewing some literature before coming out here today because I knew I would get some probing questions. And I discovered a study that had been conducted in the United States identifying young workers as the most vulnerable workers, and the date of the study was 1926, which was the date of my father's birth.
Really?
Yeah, so these issues have been around for a long, long time, and I believe that occupational safety and health is simply going to be a continuing challenge for most economies.
Wow. Anyway, how is it in the Philippines today, Dr. Kukweko?
Okay. We have data, of course, that is generated from the inspection system, but what we would also, these are not sufficient, we know, and especially because for diseases, we are not seeing much of this from the inspection system. But from the inspection system on accidents, we do have this. But we also see that last year there was more increasing number of accidents from noted based on reports and the inspection. But we also look into surveys that are done regularly. This is from the Philippine Statistics Authority. And the latest survey that was a reflection of the data from 2015 showed that for injuries and accidents, it has been increasing, but it is like almost plateauing. Like for the past 3 years, we were having injuries at 48,000, 49,000, and then 50,000. So it was these kinds of increase. Then we for diseases where there was a from from 2015, the year before that, we saw a very high increase in work-related musculoskeletal disease. These are diseases of the joints. From a previous like 50,000 uh, cases surveyed in, let me say, 2009, it became 108 or 170,000 in 2013. Then it went down to 88,000 in 2015. Again, work-related musculoskeletal diseases or diseases of the joints and skeletal muscle system has been the number one. So in terms of the significance of these increases and also a decrease, we still need to address them because it is very significant. It is a big number, and we have to do something about this. Where are they found? If we look at the sectors, we see them like for the injuries, the accidents, we note that the manufacturing is one of the biggest numbers. Then we also have in the wholesale retail trade, and then for accommodation and services. But then for the work-related musculoskeletal disorders, the number one would be in administrative and support, and call center and BPOs are the top.
Really?
So
Wow. Now, what has FFW got to say about it?
FFW has been with the workers for 68 years.
And there were no call centers then.
There were no call centers then. But the big problem in the call center was last December when 38 call centers
Staff?
workers
Yeah.
were gone because of the fire in the NCC in Davao. And I understand it also affected about 2,000 workers who are working in that particular commercial center. I think we have a problem on compliance in the Philippines. The reason why we have been advocating for a new law that will give that will guide us in the strict compliance of occupational safety and health. And I understand it's a cooperation between the workers and the employers group, including government, that the House of Representatives and the Senate had already adopted and approved in a bicameral committee the new law on health and safety, which include a heavier penalty for those who are or who would be violating the law. It now involves about 100,000 in the draft of the law, but not yet signed by the president, about 100,000 from pesos per day from the time that the employer is informed of the violation. So that's a big improvement from the previous of 1,000 pesos to 10,000 pesos straight. Ano? So that's an improvement. And we welcome that development as an improvement in our legislative framework to address the concern of occupational safety and health.
Okay, from the youth, Beatrice, tell us, how do you look at these issues? Because there's a study some time ago which mentioned or revealed that most millennials are accident prone.
Yes, sir. As mentioned by Sir Nick, I think ILO, they have the study that says that 40% youths are more likely to get injured on the job than the older ones. So let me just introduce our organization, the AYOSH. So AYOSH stands for the Advancement of Youth for Occupational Safety and Health. So this organization is the offspring of what we attended last September in Singapore, which is the Safe Youth at Work Congress. So it's the first time because ILO, they doing this big conference, the World Safety Congress, which is only conducted every 3 years. And it is first time last September that the youth is included in the discussion. So it is a simultaneous with the uh, bigger conference in which we youth, we have our own. And one of our proposal is to create this organization because we think that youths are not that well informed about OSH and they only happen to know OSH when they get injured. So it's like ningas kugon. So occupational safety and health, as they say, safety is just like a common sense.
Okay.
But how can you say that it is a common sense if accidents happens and which can be prevented at first hand?
Okay.
So we at the IOSH, we conducted several activities these past months, especially as you have mentioned a while ago. We were invited by the Resorts World Manila to conduct a Safe Jam. So what is Safe Jam? Safe Jam is a one day activity where people interested in decreasing the OSH vulnerability of their workers come together to create prototypes to address the OSH concerns. So it was a fruitful
Discussion.
discussion workshop with the Resorts
Resorts
World
World.
Manila, and they crafted a lot of ideas on where they
Okay.
can decrease the OSH vulnerability of their people. So aside
Okay.
from that, so we are 5 in the group, and someone, our colleague, is in Mindanao, and it is Ronnie Barrientos, and he is doing a lot of works in Mindanao.
Okay.
They have he had a talk with the local council to conduct OSH awareness. And I think this July they will have several meetings. It is a tie-up with the SDG wherein they will talk particularly on OSH. And here in Manila, we have also a member in the Bureau of Labor uh, and Working Condition, or BLWC. It is Eunice Johan Garcia, and she created this interactive computer game, which is you can learn OSH, the basic OSH concept, through playing games, building puzzles, etc. And we also have students in University of the Philippines. We have um, Conrad Machu, an engineer, and Christian Saiton in UANP, who
Okay.
also working on us for projects in the future.
Very good. Nick, how does ILO define a youth? Let's be, we have to make this clear.
Yes, thank you very much. The standard UN definition of a young worker or youth are workers between the ages of 15 and 24. We recognize that many countries have different definitions, but for UN purposes, this is the focal group. And it's a good group, it's a good definition from an OSH perspective because this is the group that both suffers from injuries in the workplace, whether one is an adult, a young adult, working, or whether one is a child working in hazardous child labor.
Yeah, precisely. Because my point is, Dr. Kukweko, while you have a very beautiful center in Quezon City called Occupational Safety and Health Center, no? Very nice. The facilities are great. How are you able to give the information to the countryside where young people are involved in mining, in farming, and fishing, which may be detrimental to their health? I hope it's not classified.
No, 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 no. uh, bringing safety and health really takes a lot of strategies. There is, of course, the training, this which is required. This is mandatory that all establishments, including, usually, of course, we would say the formal establishments, but including micro-formal, which is a lot, which is you have to contend with 800,000, should have a safety and health awareness. Actually, the mandatory now is a 5-day basic safety and health for safety officers. Um, Aside from that, because this is the basic safety and health course, advocacies in safety and health it has started way back when even networks were established in all regions. The safety and health networks in the regions it is a convergence among government, the professional groups, other stakeholders, and even the academe in bringing safety and health, which means reaching out not just to formal, even now into those in mining, into the agriculture, because that is a network of partners who are ready to deliver safety and health. So aside from what is given by government or what is mandated by government, there are the different advocacies that are done by the networks and even other stakeholders who have taken on ownership on safety and health and in their own programs like the IOSH. When we look, really, they have been doing a good job. ILO in its other projects, and of course, strengthening the inspection program so that when the inspectors go to all of these sectors, they also promote safety and health.
Okay, yes, Nick.
I'd just like to add a few comments to that. The word has to get out to the Philippine society in every way possible, and programs such as this are very important. The Safe Youth at Work project, as one of its core strategies, is to raise awareness and knowledge and communication about OSH across all society so that there's enough of a conversation about occupational safety and health that people are starting to ask the right questions. And here's why we need that. Last year, the project conducted a survey of young workers to try to get a better understanding of their knowledge gaps and their attitudinal gaps around occupational safety and health. And I'll just highlight a couple of findings. Agricultural workers don't recognize pesticide use as hazardous. They understand that pesticides and insecticides are hazardous for pests and insects, but they don't realize in general that these substances are also harmful to them. So there's a knowledge gap that needs to be addressed. A majority of workers who responded to the study informed that they thought they would get in trouble with the employer if they reported a workplace hazard. So again, there's a lack of understanding that under the law, they have a right to inform the employer and to inform the inspectorate of the existence of a workplace hazard. So unless we have more conversations such as we're having today, we're not going to be able to tackle these fundamental knowledge and awareness deficits.
Yeah. But Dr. Kukweko, tell us about your labor inspectors. How many are they? What's the average age? Have you supervised how they perform their jobs? Because chances are they may close their eyes to hazards.
No, actually, at present, the DOLE has now 574 labor inspectors plus an additional 34, and we're looking forward to another 100 that has been approved. So all in all, we're looking at around our 700 plus. But on the existing, so it's around 600. Now, these labor inspectors, they range from right after graduation, but with some experience, so mid-20s all the way to our more senior and even the chief labor inspectors. They have been given training, of course, because our labor inspectors are looking at inspection on 3 major areas. There is, of course, safety and health, which is complying with the standards. Then there would be the general labor standards, which everybody would really be interested in, like that's minimum wage, hours of work, benefits, and now the thrust of the government on security of tenure. So all of this, that labor inspector has to perform. But what we also tell them, especially for those who are doing safety and health, we are now trying to improve our reform or recalibrate our inspection systems so that those who are really very knowledgeable or who have technical expertise can do more in terms of safety and health. And maybe I also add, because we have the union here, as an addition to our inspection system, we have added the social partners to participate. the DOLE has issued an administrative order last year that allowed social partners, meaning from the unions, from employers, from professional groups, to join in the inspection as participants. They are not doing, they cannot be labor inspectors because this is regulatory, but they can participate, they can observe, they can ask, and they can also document their findings. But of course, the findings given to the establishment after inspection will be that of the labor inspectors. If it is an agreement with the social partners, that is good. But if there will be some differences, the social partner can bring it up with the regional director. But this is also ensuring the integrity of inspection. What else? We are strengthening capacities with the ILO. We are strengthening capacities of our inspectors on safety and health, not just looking at compliance, but asking the proper question, being proactive, like questions on if you're the recent accident in Hanjin, where there were workers that also died because of fall. Uh, it, it's like when the inspectors would go there, they might see that the workplace was good, but the question here is, have you asked the right questions if you see that they are working at heights? That there should be working permits for those working at heights, and these are the capacities we are bringing about and strengthening our inspectors, so that with asking the proper questions, with looking at how they should really be addressing safety and health and looking at the prevention, so that we will not be reactive to accidents, then perhaps we can really reach our goal in addressing and reducing, and even really the goal of preventing work-related accidents and illness from happening.
Okay. Have you had experience of joining the inspection?
We welcome this policy of the Department of Labor and Employment to include the employers group and the workers group in the conduct of investigation. In fact, during the
You
Kentix,
mean inspection,
yes, we
but
we
not
were part.
investigation.
Yeah, we were part of the inspection team of the Department of Labor and Employment. For example, in the Kentix case, after that case, after the accident happened, the Department of Labor and Employment invited, under Secretary Rosalinda Baldos, the secretary invited the workers and the employers group to conduct inspection in Valenzuela, particularly near the place where the Kentix accident happened. And so a number of trade unions participated in that particular activities of the Department of Labor. And it was institutionalized under Department Order number 183 under the new secretary, Secretary Bebot Bello, that workers can participate in the inspection process of the Department of Labor and Employment. And we welcome that development because we can participate in, I think, 4 particular fields: the occupational safety and health, the general labor standards, particularly the SOT, and another one, the anti-child labor, the child labor aspect of the workplace. And it's a positive development with respect to workers' participation in the inspection process.
Nick, you will agree with me that we have an uncertain world. Superpowers are into trade wars as well. How will this impact on countries like the Philippines? Because as prices go up and there is not much money, chances are the young will be made to work.
Well, in any economy, in every society, you have employers that take their occupational safety and health obligations seriously and go above and beyond what is required by law to ensure that workers are guaranteed a safe workplace and go home every day in one piece. And at the same time, within that same sector or within that same industry, you will have employers who are somewhat more cavalier about their legal and moral responsibilities. I think that whatever the status of globalization and trading issues, you will always have that spread. You will always have that bell curve, if you will, between the few and the proud who do everything that is necessary and go beyond, and those who, what we call the low roaders. There will always be low roaders. And in this sense, occupational safety and health and occupational safety and health enforcement is very important to ensure a level playing field so that no matter the global status, that all the employers in that particular industry don't have to fear being undercut by a competitor who chooses to protect their workers less.
Yes, please.
Just to add to the discussion, during the Congress, I was fortunate enough to have a direct question to ILO Director General Guy Rader, and my question was, what do you think is the biggest problem why companies or enterprises do not comply with the occupational safety and health standards? And his answer is like pointed to two things. First is above. He think that the biggest problem is the mind frame and attitude among some entrepreneurs and enterprises that safe and healthy is a burden or cost, and they have to spend money on it. So, despite a lot of statistics saying that the accidents in workplace cost a lot of money, they still think that investing for OSH for their employees is a cost. And the second is he identified is many countries who are members of the ILO are do not have the right regulations, or if do exist, it is not well taken. So yeah,
Not taken seriously.
yes.
That's sad. Why do you think so?
I think awareness and the consequences of not being observance of occupational safety and health is an important concern. And the recent bills approved by Congress had addressed some part of that, the concern of educating the workers and the employers. And in fact, there is a provision in that law that defines collected from employers shall be used as funding for the educational and training purposes for occupational safety and health. And I am happy with the law that includes the participation of workers in the occupational and safety.
Okay.
That is now compulsory, not only to be included in the collective bargaining agreement. Most of the companies have collective bargaining agreements have occupational safety and health, but now the law provides that occupational safety and health is mandatory to all establishments. That will include the workers, and the workers shall be represented by their union representatives. If there is no union, then the workers should elect their
Okay.
representative to this occupational safety and health committee.
Yeah, the reason that's good. No, the reason I was about to ask you that was, how do we protect the non-unionized workers? Because there are companies, whether you like it or not, at the hint that the workers will organize themselves into a union, they bust it down the line.
Yeah, that's a sad story of the Philippines.
This is the Philippines after all.
Yeah, that's why I think the election of a representative to the Occupational Safety and Health Committee is a good provision of the law that can be complied with by both the employers and the workers. However, at present, we feel it sad that the draft proposal of the Constitutional Committee headed by former Chief Justice Renato Puno deleted the provision of the Constitution on the participation of the workers in decision making and that right of the workers to humane conditions of work. We cannot
Really?
find that now in the draft of the consultative committee, which shall be submitted
To the president
to
today.
the president this afternoon.
Yeah.
And so we said that it appears that the workers' right is not a serious concern of the consultative committee. Anyway, that would be a subject of
Yeah.
criticism in the bar of public opinion.
Yes. The other day, or sometime last week, we had a chance to talk with Joe Masison on Skype about CASER, the Comprehensive Agreement on Social and Economic Reforms. And he said the scrapping of the peace talks may have been a smokescreen to do away with the provisions of the CASER because the administration is currently held by people in power in big business and what have you. But that's Jose Maria Sison's views. I don't think you share the same views, right?
Yeah, but if we will look at the draft constitution, it appears that it's more of not considering the right of the workers because there are other provisions of the constitution of the present constitution which were deleted totally. For example, the right to self-organization, although it is included in the Bill of Rights, but on the social justice provision of the proposal of the draft of Justice Puno, it was deleted, which is
Surprising.
yes, surprisingly.
Surprising.
The right to self-organization, the right to collective bargaining negotiation, the right to peaceful concerted activities, including the right to strike in accordance with law. It cannot be
Okay.
found on
We will
the
try to
social
look for
justice
it, don't
provision of
worry.
that.
We will have another edition for that. Nick, would you be able to tell us the best practices worldwide? Would you say you have countries which are outstanding in occupational safety and health?
That's a good question. I'm sure there are good countries out there, but my experience in occupational safety and health is that no matter how good you are, you need to be better because there's always areas in which you can improve. Safety is a constant, it requires vigilance, it requires attention and an analysis and a reanalysis of the challenges. And for example, I'll give you one statistic that I learned in March at an OSH conference in Dublin. In the United States, there are approximately 60 to 80 chemical compounds for which threshold limit values have been established and permissible exposure limits have been established so that employers know not to go above them without risking harm to the health of the employee. And yet, there are 10,000 to 20,000 chemical compounds in use in workplaces in the United States. And so OSH has an awful lot of catching up to do. I think one of the reasons is, as was identified by my colleagues here today, OSH is seen as an expense, and yet studies have been done time after time showing that every dollar spent on occupational safety and health returns $2 to $3 in productivity, in efficiency, in esprit de corps, and in loyalty to the workplace. So I think there's a fundamental misunderstanding about what OSH is and what it can accomplish, and as long as that misunderstanding pertains, we're going to have deficits in occupational safety and health performance.
Thank you very much. Dr. Kukweko, how does the government look at the firecracker industry? Soon it will be Christmas and New Year.
You know, Secretary Bell was, you know, he was very strong when I think it was 2 Christmases ago, after 2 accidents, he enforced a work stoppage order across all pyrotechnics manufacturing nationwide. He said that is enough. The safety and health risks are there. The companies or establishments were not answering them. Compliance violations were rampant, and he said, no work until you will comply. And it was on Christmas time where demand was very high. It hurt industry, but in the end, industry also knew that they were, unless they comply with the safety and health standards, with the Bureau of Fire standards, and also with the PNP standards on because these are all standards that they should comply with, the government was serious in addressing all of these fatalities because it was a blast that started early already killed not just only those working there but even businesses beside. And when they when all industries complied, at least like last year, we saw less of these accidents. It was not, it would just be a few of the accidents that would happen, but DOLE called for the nationwide stoppage in the pyrotechnics industry. And may I add something? What we look at now, there are many industries now, there are many establishments that have realized that safety and health is very important. For those who do not report, we are now seeing companies who incentivize those who report. There are now companies who add on or who provide tokens, and they call it, a positive way of looking at near miss, because they know that if they do not report the near miss, it will become an accident in the future. And that is why I think the OSHC were part of the award system for safety and health, was looking at all these incentives that companies are doing so that they continue to look at programs that would really provide good safety and health measures, including incentives, and avoid, and then reduce, of course, and prevent accidents and injuries.
Dr. Cueco, this may be a bit parochial, but how has the traffic impacted on a worker's health? Because you have to work 8 hours and you spend almost the same number of hours to get to work and go home, and you don't have enough sleep.
Then we have the issue on, and I think this is where the psychosocial has a mental health and its consequences. And that is why I think there is a new bill now, the telecommuting bill, where that would also address, but of course, this is just very, it's not addressing the whole big problem, because not all work can be telecommuted or doing home-based work. But we do hope the traffic situation would improve. We see the roadways, we see that they are being improved. But again, we also have to look at certain strategies so that workers who would have to contend with the mental issues, the stress from this, then they go to work, then they go home again. There would be avenues where we would have to lessen that stress, and so that in the end we can still look at a productive worker's life, even if there is a traffic challenge that would face a worker every day.
Yes, Nick, would you care to react to that? This may be a bit parochial, but how do they do it in other countries like Jakarta, like India, and some other countries where traffic is also bad?
Well, it's a global problem, and I think the issue is partly one that the workplace needs to accommodate through policies like telework or compressed work schedules, where a worker can do the 40 hours required of her over the course of 4 days instead of 5 days, and thereby eliminating 2 commutes out of the week. But in addition, I think the real burden needs to fall on the planners, the urban planners and the transportation engineers that set up a network that lacks the capacity to handle the traffic. And if there need to be restrictions on vehicles, I know some countries have gone to even number, odd number situations, or limited the number of registrations.
Yes.
These are all, it needs to be all hands on deck in order to address this. Mass transit is part of the answer, but not the complete answer.
Okay. In the Philippines, people who can afford to buy vehicles to avoid the number coding bought more vehicles, which added to the traffic. Well, anyway, that's another case. I wouldn't want you to meddle into domestic affairs, because some people may say you're meddling in affairs which may be detrimental to your state.
I can assure you that in this particular case, I'm meddling in global affairs.
Thank you very much. Otherwise, it will be intergalactic affairs. No? We'll talk about traffic in Pluto. But seriously, Attorney Matula, how do you look at the productivity, the impact on productivity caused by traffic and the lack of sleep?
It's a problem of the workers. And Nick was speaking about compressed work week and other strategies. Labor has been proposing, why not reduce the work hours from 6 hours to from 8 hours to 6 hours, and from 40 hours per week to 30, which has been done by other countries to reduce the stress and make our workers more productive.
And then they will get more sidelines.
That's another story. That's another story. The problem of infrastructure is also should be addressed by the government, and the build project probably can answer some part of that problem.
Okay. Pero mula sa kabataan, anong tingin nyo ron? Dahil una, pag nagtrabaho ka na lang sa bahay, hindi ka napupunta sa pinagtatrabahuan mo, maganda ba yun? Makabubuti ba sa inyo?
Siguro mas maganda yung for my personal experience na lang. So, I'm living in Quezon City and I'm working in Makati. So, can you imagine the commute? Like, I have to ride every day the MRT. So, it's here in the Philippines, MRT is really a not good train. So, it always breaks down during the peak hours. So, every day, my commute time almost takes 4 to 5 hours. So 8 plus 4, so I get less sleep. So I think if you have the proposal to decrease it, I think makakabuti siya.
Nakakabuti.
Yeah.
O, kaya lang ang problema mo ron, baka mabawasan din yung sahod mo.
Kasi sa company po namin, let me share, because I'm also working in the government, it's a GOCC, so we implemented the 4-day work week. So instead of going to work 5 days, you only have to be at the office 4 days with longer hours instead of 9 hours. So you add the extra 2 hours, so 10, including the break. So I think it ran for almost 3 months and it was cut because of COA concern.
Okay. Well, that's another thing. Regulations, government regulations. We'd like to open the floor to our colleagues from the media who may have questions. Please approach the microphone and identify yourself and the entity you come from. Would you care to begin? Yes, brother. Not yet, okay. More questions? All right. Yes, please.
Hi, good morning. I'm Cory Quintas from ABS-CBN. You've discussed a little bit of the statistics a while ago regarding the young workforce or youth workforce. The question is, you have it here, young workers and children face very significant risks at work. So can you explain it of course, in the Philippine setting for Dr. Coqueco, and of course from ILO? Can you give us, a brief discussion about it? Because you said that 40%, if I'm not mistaken, of the user, at the risk of having this significant risks at work. Thank you.
Sure, I'll provide the general global picture, and then Dr. Tess will provide information on the national situation. The reason that young workers have an elevated incidence of workplace injury, there are many reasons for that. We start with a lack of training and experience, because in addition to young workers, we know that statistically, new workers of any age suffer a higher rate of accidents and incidents on the job. So part of the problem is simply a lack of training, a lack of experience, and an inability to appreciate and assess the hazards to which they may be confronted at the workplace. Secondly, there's a supervision problem, because society at large and the employer community in particular doesn't yet recognize the vulnerability of young workers. Young workers are not provided an appropriate level of supervision. Thirdly, there is assignment to dangerous tasks. No one wants to do the dirty jobs. No one wants to clean out the tanks and go down into the hole. and find out why something's not draining. And so young workers typically get assigned dangerous, hazardous, and difficult jobs for which they're simply not prepared. In addition to that, you have to add youth physiology, which is to say that young workers, because their metabolism operates at a higher level, they are more susceptible to harm from any particular agent, physical or chemical, even psychosocial. Young workers are more susceptible to harm from bullying and harassment. So across the board, young workers are more vulnerable, more susceptible, more sensitive to harm. And what the project seeks to do is help national OSH system understand that particular problem, and then through a very focused way of improving data and statistics on young workers, improving law and policy on young worker protection, improving technical capacity to protect young workers, and improving societal understanding of the problem, then we can collectively make steps to make the workplace safer for young workers. The 40% higher incidence rate is taken from the European setting. In some cases, it's much higher than that. I know that statistics from the United States show that young workers are twice as likely. So that's 100% higher likelihood of suffering harm on the workplace. And so it's a problem that every society, every economy faces. And what we would say is that everybody understands child labor. Everybody understands that children need special protections. There are hazardous work lists so that children are not assigned to jobs for which they're not suited, either by the circumstances of the job or the nature of the work. For example, mining. You would never assign a child to work in a mine. And the argument that the project is trying to make is that a child doesn't cease to be vulnerable on the day that she turns 18. They remain vulnerable through their mid-20s. And the policy protections and the awareness that drives protection of children in the workplace needs to be extended to this older cohort so that we can assure that young people who are the future of our work can enter the workforce and provide for their families safely.
Dr. Tess?
What Nick mentioned is exactly what we also see here now. The working population, it's equally distributed, like from the young to the very old. But then when we see accidents and illness, we do note that the very young do have a risk for the accidents because of their inexperience and because they are really brought out into the highly hazardous type of work. And they, even in terms of their awareness on safety and health, it is also, it is lacking. So that is why we see all of these things, all of these concerns, especially for the young workers, they add on to why we see that young workers get more accidents, and but once the training is given, once awareness is there, then they know how to protect themselves better. But then because they are really very vulnerable, and that is why the need to address their safety and health should be started really very early on. We really note that because all of what was mentioned earlier is also what we see here in the Philippines.
Yes. Can you tell us what are we looking at the age of 15 to 24, or can you define the young people working or the youth force working, the age? I mean,
We start at 15.
15 to
Yes, we do
24.
start. Our youth definition in the Philippines is, if I'm not mistaken, up to 30. Because that is now where of course, with 15 to 30, definitely you will see them in all sectors. But then when we talk of accidents happening in the sectors, we see many of them mostly in manufacturing, and the youth is there. They right after school, or for those who after voc tech courses, they are into manufacturing, And that is why you will see the accidents also happening. And it is also in this age group that you will see a lot of these accidents occurring.
Yes po. Doc, ano ko lang no, marami sa atin, punta ka lang ng EDSA, makikita mo maraming mga batang nagtitinda ng sampagita, for example. Sila ba ay, syempre, this is child labor and alam naman natin na ano, are they, like, kasama ba sila doon sa tinatawag natin na workforce? And then, tulad po na sinasabi niyo trainings, ito pong mga training na to are for like private companies and yung mga established na, we can say
Okay.
that. Pero for some na hindi, yun po yung tinatawag natin na parang merong mga underground na mga nagtatrabaho, ganyan. Paano po sila? Like, how do we, paano natin ipopromote yung OSH sa kanila?
Okay, you have simply put, you have the informal sector and the formal sector. You have the formal sector, you have the standards. In the standards, at least it's there. They should comply with the training, awareness, it's all there. What is the formal sector in terms of but if we talk of micro, as long as they're registered, formal sector na, then the required compliances for awareness and training should be there. Then you talk of the informal sector. Then we see the vendors. Those who are very mobile, they're not registered. How do we address safety and health? This is a challenge because we are working with partners. Safety and health is not just the Department of Labor and Employment. Safety and health is really a network of agencies that put forward and look into addressing safety and health. When you see the informal sector, we're working with the DOH, with the Department of Health, because they reach towards this informal sector type of workers because of their access to this informal sector through the rural health physicians or through the barangays. They go there. Then we have been working with them together with the local governments in bringing about safety and health in the barangay. And that would also provide them the necessary awareness. It is really a big challenge working with them. Addressing the informal sector workplace. They're not very visible actually, but we have to reach them because they're also very vulnerable. Again, it is really working together. We are working with other partners who can address these informal sector workers, and we continue to work with them. Like I said, the ILG, the LGUs, the Department of Health, so that we can bring out the awareness on safety and health.
Okay, thank you po.
Now, let me ask you, Dr. Kukweko, there are certain families which utilize, pardon the term, minors in farm work. They say it's training, but they are in a way exposed to chemicals and pesticides. And they don't earn wages because they're part of the family. How does the government look at it?
Okay, that again becomes child work versus child labor. If they're part of a family, they would say, this is how we were brought up, this is, we are asked to look into or help the family. But if there is, we have also been working here with the Department of Agriculture, especially because of the issue on pesticides, where we see the need that they have to address this because even if they bring their families to the farm, but because they use pesticides and they spray, the exposure will be there to all the members of the family. We are working with our counterparts with the Department of Agriculture so that it is their responsibility to provide the training on protection, on pesticide use, and we have also tried to reach out to the different agriculture communities. I know the OSHC has prepared videos. They have also tried to reach out to the agriculture, to the agrarian reform beneficiaries, and even now they continue to work with them so that they, these kinds of, even if they say it's child work, but because of the risk of the hazardousness of the work there should be no children, and even the adults, they should be well protected in the way they are doing their work.
Okay, thank you. Would you care to add to the discussion? Yes, please. You have a microphone.
Yes, we agree that occupational safety and health is not only the concern of the Department of Labor and Employment, and it is the concern of the workers, the employers, as well the other branches of the government, like the local government units. My why the workers welcome the new law on occupational safety and health. One is also the the pointing out of responsibility. Before, when it comes to workers in the mining industry, it's the DENR or Department of Energy on the coal mining, for example. But now the law, no, the draft, the draft law is now pointing to the Department of Labor to coordinate all these departments on occupational safety and health. And that would include the other departments other than the DOE or Department of Environment and Natural Resources, the local government units, and other branches of the government. So the responsibility to coordinate is now pointed to the Department of Labor and Employment.
Okay, thank you. Yes, please.
Taga Sansar Philippines, Cebu po ako. I would like to suggest, sa criminal, ma'am, kay doktora, nagbibigay sila ng informant para mapagsumbungan kung may mga criminal antecedent. Pero doon sa mga labor youth, about the actual na inabuso ng isang company o small company, huwag kayo na kung halimbawa, hindi, kasi kapag pumunta pa siya ng doli o mapagreklamuhan, minsan mahaba pa ang proseso. Pwede ba magkaroon ng numbers na o globes o smart na pwedeng pag nag-text, mayroon siyang mapagsusumbungan actual na ginawa sa kanya, inabuso siya, and the same time yung malaking company o kaya may padrino yung lugar nun, yung company yun, nasasakupan ng kamag-anak ng mayor, paano siya makapagsusumbong?
Okay.
By using the number of the representative ng DOLE.
Yeah. Parang nung panahon ni General Ebdane yun, 2920. No?
Yeah, wala.
2920 yun, tinatawagan nun.
Pwede ba i-implement yung ganun pong para actual na may incident na may problema, yung isang kabataan o more, anumang edad niya na mapagsusumbungan?
Actually, ang Dole po may hotline na. Pero ganito kasi yan. The way we address any complaint would really be, especially if it is because of a problem on wages, underpayment, or abuse, talagang inspection po yan. Pero talagang immediate inspection ang ginagawa po dyan. So, kung nasaan po silang lugar, kailangan kasi pwede naman, ang anonymous, you don't have to give your name. They will also address anonymous complaints. So, there is, of course, the 8888, and then the DOLE hotline, there's a DOLE hotline, 527-3000. Then, that...
Mahiyaing sumagot yan.
Talaga?
Mahiyain.
Sige. Email nyo na lang ho, askbwc@gmail.com. That is the fastest, and that is straight to our office. It's an email, askbwc@gmail.com. We immediately give the action to the region that should inspect right away and give us feedback. Kasi we have to give you back the feedback after the inspection is done. So, kailangan pa rin talaho may inspection. And ang inspection naman ho, kailangan pumasok ka agad. In our rules of inspection now, the first visit is an inspection visit. There should be no refusal of access to any labor inspector who na pupunta ho sa lugar ng paggawa.
Wow, maganda po yan.
May
Well,
isa lang
teka, tanong ko lang sa inyo, yung bang hanjin pwede lang pasukin?
Pasukin na pag-organisa?
Hindi, yung pag-inspect.
Palagay ko kung mayroong mag-complain at pwedeng pasukin yan ng Department of Labor kasi sa Article 128, any time of the day or night where work is being done, the Secretary of Labor or his representative or the Labor Enforcement Officer can conduct investigation
Even
or
with
inspection.
PESA registered,
Yes.
PESA located establishment.
That is not an exclusion to the law. Pwede kong kuhan yung retaliatory act against those employees who
Would
filed a
complain.
complaint. Oo. Sa proposed dito sa draft law is bawal yan. At pwede yang mag-impose ng 100,000 pesos dahil sa retaliatory act, ano. So gusto nga namin, tinatawagan namin ng Pangulo na pirmahan na yung yung draft na yan kasi na-approvean na yan ng House at ng Senate eh. Tapos pangalawa pa sa existing law, pwede makonsider yung retaliatory act against a complainant kung may ginagawang i-dismiss siya ng kanyang employer o hinaras siya dahil sa nag-file siya ng complaint, ay makonsider niyang Unfair Labor Practice Act sa Article 102.48 ng Labor Code. So when workers filed a complaint and the employer as a retaliatory act terminated the worker, that is an offense or an unlawful act under the Labor Code. And that should
Okay.
not be done.
Very good. Okay? Questions from the floor? Yes, please.
Good morning po, Kahiro from PDP. Uh, I would like to address my question to the representative of DOLE and to our ILO representative.
Go ahead, sir.
Is there any program with regards to child worker working because they want to continue their education or they want to augment the family income? Yes.
Okay.
Is there any program from ILO or DOLE? Because I've seen a lot of segments in the televisions report with regards to child workers
Okay.
just trying to,
To eke out a living
yes.
when they're supposed to be in
Is there
school.
any program from ILO? Or
Yeah, okay.
Yes, there's a very substantial program that the ILO implements globally to prevent unlawful child labor. In the Philippines and in many countries, children can only work as of a certain minimum legal age and then only under certain controlled conditions. And there was enacted in the 1990s a new ILO convention on the worst forms of child labor, which targets very specifically the biggest problems in the world of child labor, and certainly hazardous child labor, that is to say work which causes harm or which has the potential to cause harm, is the most serious problem in the world of child labor. So very much it's front and center for the ILO on a global level. And this year, in fact, so the child labor campaign observes a special day, June 12th, in which all the ILO offices around the world and national partners get together to recommit themselves to the campaign against child labor. April 28th is the Global Day for Occupational Safety and Health. And this year, for the first time, we combined both those days under the slogan Generation Safe and Healthy, to make the point that by combining the best efforts on occupational safety and health and on child labor, we can make progress in both areas more expeditiously.
Yes, madam.
We have a Republic Act on for against child labor. It is there, and but for those who there are also certain exceptions to this, especially for those in the entertainment. That's why you can see them, but they should have a working child permit. In the working child permit, it will allow, there are certain allow that they can work only for these hours in a day. And if they're aged, if I think if they're less than 6 or 10, they can only, they can be allowed to work by 8 p.m. and then at an older age by 10 p.m. So there are certain exemptions But it is really very few because actually the Philippines also does not allow child labor here.
Melo, what I'm asking is there any support program from ILO and even Department of Labor to help these children because they are forced to work because of their conditions.
Okay.
To help the family and even to continue education. Is there any support from that?
Eh, we have to, okay, actually, if it, uh, the government does not allow child labor. That's it. But on child work, actually, there are certain allowances on child work if there is a family member who is supervising. But this is child work that is not hazardous. So you have to be when there are laws that are also looking into this, because you have to understand that the work is really for those who can work. And these are the adults. Children, the young, those who have to be at school, should be at school.
Maybe you can initiate a program like adopting children, or give them scholarship or give them allowances to continue their education. That's what I'm trying to look
Okay.
at
Well,
your program.
let me say something. That is one of the purposes of the 4Ps. Pantawid Pamilya program of the government to keep children in school. And parents should comply. Otherwise, the government will not release funds anymore.
But the 4 Ps is not enough.
No, no, no. The question is, you cannot give everything that you don't have. You must remember that because even the 4Ps is a controversial
Maybe
program.
the ILO representative can say more.
Yes, I know that one of my colleagues from the ILO office here can fill in the details much better than I, but for many years the ILO has implemented a child labor program in the Philippines and continues to do so. So the ILO is committed not only globally but in the Philippines to combating child labor.
Okay. Should we call on your partner in the Philippines to say something? Okay. So
Thank you.
May we have the volunteer from ILO in the Philippines who'd like to say something about the specific programs for the information of our good friend Hero? Yes.
Just as an additional input, the question really is whether ILO is working with, let's say, the educational sector to make sure that young people who are trying to finish schooling do so and yet work. So the context here is we're working with several school-to-work transition programs so that occupational safety and health is integral to the program. But still, the bottom line is they're still not allowed to work. There's a certain age where they cannot work, especially in hazardous occupations. The ongoing work of the Safe Youth at Work project here in the Philippines recognizes that. So what we do is even at the school age, we are trying to integrate consciousness or awareness of OSH so that in a way it prevents both the child to try to think about working and also influence the parents to also not ask their child to work and keep them in school.
Thank you very much. We have more questions. Yes, please.
Sir, Jojo Sikat from AbanteOnlinePolitico.com. We have a lot of laws implementing and regarding on the child labor. Pero patuloy pa rin, it still continues. Are the Philippine laws enough against child labor? Or the implementation is lack of implementation? Ano ba yung nakikita nyo yung, what is the problem that this child labor is still existing?
Okay, the inspection program of the department is very crucial in really trying to look at, because child labor is also not visible. We see that there are establishments who employ these young children, but sometimes when the inspector goes there, these are hidden. And that is why it is working again with the Anti-Child Labor Council, the National Child Labor Program, so that we can address these issues, because there are, you know, it's a complex issue. There is trafficking. There are other uh, uh, concerns that are also happening. But if we look into our program in the inspection system, we're also working with partners so that it's not actually, you know, when we see that there would be establishment with child labor, it's also working with the NBI, the DSWD, because once we have um, an establishment with child labor is going to be inspected and we see that there is child labor, there would have to be measures that should be done to these children so that they can be protected. And of course, the NBI, because it is a criminal problem.
Sir, to the ILO, do you see that these child labors, the main cause is the poverty, no? Then, do you have any suggestion how can we resolve this by the support of the ILO?
I have to say, in responding to the question, that I'm not a child labor expert. I'm an occupational safety and health expert. And so let me just say one thing about enforcement, because there have been several questions about enforcement, and there is an idea among civil society that more enforcement is the answer. But in the United States, for example, we have 8 million or 9 million workplaces, and we have 2,000 OSH inspectors. So if you do the math, you know that it's quite possible you will not see an OSH inspector at your doorstep for 75 years. So consequently, it's very much like traffic lights. We stop when the light is red and we go when the light is green, and we don't need a policeman at every corner to tell us to stop when it's red and go when it's green. It's a matter of social mores and customs, expectations, and culture. And so these are things that even the most robust enforcement system cannot address. It requires all of society to come together in agreement that these are situations, these are circumstances which we will not tolerate. And until that collective understanding is reached, we will have a problem with OSH, and I'm afraid to say we will continue to have a problem with child labor.
Okay. Well, it's about time for us to say thank you to all our guests, but I will have to ask them, how do you look at the near future about child at work, child at play, and working conditions? Marami pa bang mga kabataan at na masaasangkot sa paggawa?
Yun nga, sa ayos din, as our organization, we envision a workplace which is safe and healthy for young people and all. So kami, as part of our organization, we always try to make a ripple effect. So we try to touch the organization. So we conduct the Safe Jam activity. They create prototypes which is implementable to their communities, and which is turn they create more awareness to the grassroots people. So we're still, I know it's still a small steps, pero we're aiming to a injury-free society.
Okay. Thank you. Mula po sa FFW.
Sa FFW, if we will maintain the status quo, palagay ko, lalala pa rin yung problema. Kaya the FFW has been advocating to empower the workers, to give workers power, to have collective bargaining power with their employers, to have a good share of their fruits of production, and to be involved in national advocacy. And we do not believe in a superman, like a one-man person to solve all our problems. So we need to organize the workers. And not only the workers, but we have to include those people who are excluded. That is why we support the initiative of the peace panel of the government to involve the Communist Party of the Philippines to come and to talk about how to improve the lives of the Filipino people. And I think if we will work together, I think we can solve all these problems.
Thank you. Dr. Coqueco, from your end at the Department of Labor.
Okay, of, we we are still trying to improve, of course, many aspects on safety and health. I know with our the Safety and Health Center has also been trying to improve its program on getting 1 million advocates to push for safety and health. This will be the catalyst to jumpstart safety and health awareness everywhere. And we are working with them so that that 1 million becomes more and more. And then we really see safety and health going down to where it really matters, to the grassroots and to all workplaces, formal or informal. Now, from our end on enforcement, we are also empowering all our inspectors to address safety and health, not just in terms of violations or compliance, but in helping to be more developmental. If we see that there is a lack of awareness, then we open them to avenues where they can have this awareness, where they can have more of the information that they would need. And that is where we are also strengthening our inspectorates. So from the Department of Labor, we know that the challenges are there. We know that the programs have to be more enhanced, but we are we work together with our partners, with other stakeholders to improve the systems and the programs.
Thank you. And now from the ILO.
Well, I can't say anything that has not already been said quite well today, but I will say this, that in the past year, the world has seen a very heartening movement, the Me Too movement, which has done so much to address the problem of sexual harassment and discrimination, especially in the workplace. And this is why we started with the Safe Youth at Work project to work directly with young people like Ms. Bia Brondial, so that young people can find their voice, can assert themselves in the workplace, in society, with legislatures, and in media platforms such as this, to spread the word that they are here, they are vulnerable, and they require protection. So if we can help young workers like Bia and their national partners to light that fire and get that movement going, maybe someday we will have a global movement, the equivalent of the Me Too movement. That's my hope.
Thank you very much. I'd like to thank everyone who took time to be with us today. It's indeed a pleasure. But they say in the Philippines, sabi nga ni Jose Rizal, nasa kabataan ng pag-asa ng bayan. Pero anong pag-asa ng bayan kung ang mga bata ay biktima ng pang-aabuso at iba pa? So the question remains and the challenge is up for people who ought to be responsible, who ought to be role models, who ought to develop values. With that, we say thank you for being part of us today. Have a nice day. God bless us all.